If you are serious about preparing for retirement, you have to understand the risks that could get in your way. That's true about anything. If you're serious about accomplishing something, you need to understand and then protect against, as much as possible, all the risks. But it is especially important when it comes to your retirement. Yet there are at least two massive risks on this list to which people are exposed that almost every financial advisor entirely ignores. You understanding those risks, and then, of course, doing everything in your power to protect yourself from and/or eliminate them, could be the difference between your retirement success and financial ruin. In this video, I'm going to take you through the 9 biggest risks threatening your long-term financial success, for which you can and should prepare. For each, we'll briefly touch on what can be done. Let's do it. Welcome back. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Steven Spicer, and my goal is to help you understand and then overcome these risks that for many are unknowingly keeping them from true financial freedom. We're talking about big risks here, things that can throw off your entire plan. I mean, back to work, out of retirement type risks, not property risk or goals and values risk or things like that. Those are important for you to consider, for your financial advisor, financial planner, if you have one, to help you with, but not as significantly fatal to one's plan as these other 9 can be. I've divided them into 3 categories: health risks, investment risks, and macro risks. We can breathe through the health risks because you are likely already familiar with most, if not all, of these. The first is longevity risk, aka insufficient funds risk. It's the risk of living longer than your financial plan projected and running out of money. The reality would probably be more like realizing that you're going to have to cut back and stressing more about money than you thought you'd have to in retirement, or than you'd like to, or more accurately, than you would have had to had you better planned today. Mainstream advice would suggest here that you just follow some simple rule of thumb in retirement that helps mathematically stretch out your funds. When the market is down, you spend less, something like that. It's that easy. Those strategies can absolutely work on paper, but will not necessarily work when paired with a few of the other risks we'll be talking about here later. I instead prefer a strategy that focuses on creating streams of stable lifetime income. When I get the opportunity to work with younger couples, that's often one of the long-term goals we're working towards. When you're just about to retire or are already in retirement, you have significantly fewer options, but you do have some. Those strategies that focus on stable lifetime income are much better at addressing longevity risk than one that depends on you just tightening the belt, living on less than you'd like during times of market chaos. The second major risk is healthcare risk. The risk that unexpected medical expenses eat into retirement savings, preventing you from achieving some otherwise attainable life goals and/or leaving a surviving spouse with less than desired. According to Fidelity's research, an average retired couple today could need approximately $315,000 saved by age 65 just to cover the increasing cost of their healthcare throughout their retirement. And that's their estimate for the average. Some will be much higher. My mother's total healthcare costs last year, for example, at age 70, were around $150,000 for that 1 year alone. My parents have far exceeded that $315,000 estimate. Luckily, due to my father's excellent financial planning, which I was fortunate enough to be in a position to help him, he had done a lot of it on his own to his great credit, but I got to help him put all that into place more than a decade ago. But luckily, because of that, she has more than enough to pay those bills. The right long-term care insurance policies were a key part of that plan, along with some other vehicles with long-term care type benefits. That being said, LTC policies today are not what they used to be. So you have to be careful. You need to understand your risks and know what you're actually getting with the protection you're trying to put into place. The third big risk here is the risk of unexpected death. Of course, we're all going to die at some point, but prematurely losing a loved one is devastating enough without any added financial stress. It's important to work through a plan from both sides. Does each spouse have what they would need to accomplish their goals should this unfortunate scenario unfold? Fourth, and this one applies to those extra responsible adults who are taking this whole long-term financial planning thing seriously despite being a ways away from actually being able to retire, I'm talking about disability risk. This is one of the most frequent, least prepared for health-related risks. It's not a fun thing for which to prepare, but a life-changing disabling event is more common than you think, and it is relatively easy to protect against. I'm not here to sell you on anything. These are just conversations you should be having with your financial advisor. Now let's get into the investment risks, number 5 through 7 here. So the fifth massive risk for which you need to have a plan is sequence or sequence of returns risk. Bad years will come for your investments in retirement, but the specific years in which they come makes a massive difference. If your worst years come within the first several years of you making that important decision to retire, your plan could be ruined in short order. A plan that was showing a 95% probability of success in 2006 might now only be showing a 20% or less probability of success by the end of 2008, just 2 years into your retirement. You need accounts with solid downside protection, ideally a 0% loss floor for some of them. You need different types of investments that you can pull from in different types of market environments, all things we talk about on this channel. Our sixth major risk here is behavior risk. Modern portfolio theory, the way that most advisors and otherwise experts today will tell you to invest, hinges on you staying the course, no matter what. Now, first of all, if you're just invested in a passive stock and bond only portfolio and the market is crashing in a way that is worse than it ever has before, I think that whole stay the course mantra is terrible advice. It just makes for easy business for mainstream financial advisors. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can check out this playlist for just part of the reason why. I explain it all fully in my book, Stop Investing Like They Tell You. Most people will entirely ignore these concerns today. But as things get more precarious, that's when more and more people start to take these concerns seriously. The problem, of course, with that is that it could be too late, depending on how much you have and how bad the problem gets. Where do you fall? But anyway, as we thoroughly explore in myths 5 and 6 of that book, most people won't end up staying the course despite what their advisor is screaming at them. The solution to this is taking the time to understand and recognize those realities today. Don't wait until the market's down 50%. And find solutions and strategies that specifically help address those very real risks to which mainstream advice leaves you entirely exposed. If you're curious what I'm talking about, this video here explains in detail one of those strategies. The seventh significant risk is market risk. With passive buy and hold stock market exposure comes extreme potential volatility, which makes for an unpredictable and potentially ruinous financial future. I'm specifically referring to equity risk with that description, but the same holds true for any market to which you're exposed. I mean, diversification is great. It's amazing. I absolutely thoughtfully take advantage of it with my clients and for myself. But just because you have money in a passive stock portfolio and a passive bond portfolio, that doesn't mean that you've covered your bases here. They can both absolutely crash at the same time, like they did in 2022, for example. And there's no reason it couldn't be worse than that in the future. The real estate market as well can help you diversify, but it can also crash at the same time as the stock market. Take 2008, for example. these assets are becoming increasingly correlated. Again, having an asset class in your mix with a 0% floor, as in no drawdown risk, as in it can't lose money like those others can, is extremely valuable when working to protect against this risk, the general market risk. Also, finding truly uncorrelated alternative investments can be extremely helpful here. I talk about that in these videos here. Is that something with which your advisor is helping you? Or, like most, are you just plugged into a passive stock and bond portfolio? I'd love to know in the comments. At the very least, do yourself the favor of sincerely asking yourself questions like that. Does your financial plan, is your financial advisor helping you address these significant risks? There are absolutely ways to better protect and grow your hard-earned assets than that risky passive stock and bond portfolio. Now, 99-point-something% of the plans I've examined for prospects and clients have absolutely nothing to help address the following two risks. A similar percentage of advisors I've seen also have no plan or seem to have no plan. They just don't talk about it. To be fair, these risks are not fun, certainly not popular to talk about. If you do, as an advisor, you risk sounding a little crazy. I've had to come to terms with that I might sound a little crazy to some people. But this is how my mind works. If I recognize something as a possibility, as a risk, I have to figure out if there is a way to address that concern. Once I've done that research, once I've found the ways, if any, to minimize or eliminate a particular concern, I then have to weigh the benefits and risks of implementing that particular strategy and the benefits and risks of not implementing that strategy. I can't just ignore it. I have to compare and weigh all of that. It would be so much easier to just ignore these risks, to pretend like they weren't legitimate concerns. But I have discovered that I just cannot do that. It eats away at me. It keeps me up at night. Heck, that's the reason for my book. And that's the reason for all those great strategies we found addressing the market risk, what we just discussed. Because these realities all make me uneasy. And they made me uneasy until I found some viable solutions. Anyway, so let's get into those final two, the macro risks. Number 8 on our overarching list of risks here is inflation risk. Now, I'm talking about significant inflation. Call it hyperinflation if you want. In a world of money printing and easy money policies, increased inflation risk is a very real threat to your long-term financial plans. Now, in the short term, the stock market might do fine during a period of heightened inflation. But if that exaggerated inflation proves to be prolonged, as companies' inputs get rapidly and significantly more expensive, while at the same time consumers are able to afford less because their dollar does not go as far as it used to, the market would eventually crash, and hard. And we'll touch on some potential solutions for this and the next one after we discuss our 9th massive risk here on this list, which is fiat currency risk. This is related to inflation risk, but more extreme. This is the risk that the US dollar and other world currencies not backed by anything really of value dramatically lose purchasing power. I've discovered that advisors do not like to talk about this risk. It's probably because it's a very difficult risk for which to prepare. It's much easier to just pretend that it's not actually a risk and hope for the best. Again, if you have an advisor, when was the last time he or she worked with you on a plan to address these risks? Or even just talked to you about them, about the fact that they are very real risks. Even if you view them as unlikely, they are very real risks. And they can be difficult and somewhat uncomfortable to plan for. There are several things here that we talk about with our clients to help address these concerns depending on their unique situation. But one of the most common is to consider where money would flow should a chaotic scenario, like what we're considering here, occur. People would search for something they considered to be safe, and most importantly, something not dependent upon a fiat currency. A couple often unpopular in different crowds assets come to mind: physical gold and Bitcoin. A small allocation, thoughtful allocation, the exact amount would depend on your unique situation, to both of these, for many, would create a sound, what I like to call chaos hedge. Some people call it a wealth hedge. Regardless, it'd be in those super rare, or you could even say unlikely, but undeniably possible scenarios where everything else is burning, that the performance of a small allocation in those could realistically make up for everything else. It could preserve your purchasing power. It could preserve the integrity of your entire financial plan, or at least give you the best chance of success no matter what happens. And that's the goal here. We've created and will continue to create resources to help you navigate all this. And we'll never stop researching to find the absolute best options for our clients and ourselves and you. I hope this helps you know what to look for, the risks your financial plan should be helping you protect against. And I hope you're honest with yourself and asking yourself the hard questions we uncovered throughout this video. If you find your plan short of any of this and would like to know more about how we might be able to help, visit our site, spicercapital.com, or at the very least, subscribe and hit the notification bell here so that you can keep up with all that content that we're putting out for you. Whatever you do, I wish you all the best. Take care.